This is my report for the end of September 2025. The year continues to be hot, unusually hot, and so the garden is pretty much finished. The first picture here is again of the deck. It's more or less a triage area where I have pulled all the tender stuff from the greenhouse to see what is still growing, still alive. Fortunately, most of it seems to be surviving, so I'm happy for that. In the background you can see a garbage bin with a blue lid that contains a bunch of twigs which I'm going to be using as kindling for the wood stove. Apart from that, nothing of any great interest, I don't think. This image might not make a lot of sense to the viewer. In fact, in the middle ground there are a bunch of poles of various sizes. I've been cutting a lot of trees around the house to make sure that if there was ever a fire, then the only threat to the house would be from the grass and not from other standing vegetation. Got most of it already, most of the hard stuff, but there's one particular ironwood which is going to be a bit of an issue for me. I might have to get professional help on it. The greenhouse area is pretty much cleaned out. Just a bunch of weeds growing up through the landscape fabric that I'll have to deal with, either with a weed trimmer or chemical, I don't know at the moment. Just a few carrots and beets in pots at the end. I pulled out the vertical poles that were in the beans structure, the structure holding up the pole beans. Some of the poles were way too long, so I've got them arranged here. I have now shortened them up so that they're all roughly the same length, a reasonable length which won't get carried by wind or anything. That's enough on that. This is the cleaned up potato area where the tubers have been dug and are now in storage. About 120 odd pounds of potatoes, very light crop. I intend to plant perhaps garlic on the right hand side here. I've got the ground prepared, but the ground is so dry that there's no point in putting anything in the ground at the moment. I guess I could plant them in the sandy light soil and just cross fingers and hope that some rain arrives to get them started in their growth for next year. But we'll see what happens on that. This is the result of the peppers. As you can see, there are some red peppers there, but they're all hot peppers. They are the ones that managed to survive the frost that we had about 10 days ago. There are just a few very small California wonder peppers that appeared, but they're not going to make any further progress because the plants were completely frosted. So this is the Brussels sprouts and the gladiolus. Gladiolus are attempting to flower, but not doing a good job because they simply have been too warm and too dry. The Brussels sprouts are putting on a valiant effort, but something is getting the leaves, something is hammering them pretty hard, trying to stay alive, I guess. This is the area where I had bush beans. Complete disaster with weeds at the moment, mostly annual stuff like crabgrass. Won't be too hard to get started on that next year. Same thing for the area where I had pole beans. They're completely removed now. I have shelled them out. I have about 15 pounds of dried beans. Last year's crop was 35. Big difference. The compost heap is growing by leaps and bounds. I'm trying to keep it moist, but it's hard. A friend of mine let me look after a hippeastrum, which some people call an amaryllis. It flowered early in the spring, of course, and now what I have is I've been keeping it moist in the heat of the greenhouse, and now it has abandoned its leaves completely. However, the bulb is still quite solid and firm. I intend to let that dry down now, and we will see if we can start it next spring. That'll be something to look forward to.